Welcome back, DigiDs, to another episode of That's Right, Kerbal Space Program 2. And if you're a little bit confused already off the start, and you're like, hey, wait a second, why do we have two fuel tanks on our orbital fuel farm? Well, to some of you who may have not have noticed, is that we had a live stream a few days ago where we actually attached the second part of that fuel tank to the fuel farm, trying to experimenting with getting better at orbital mechanics. And I'll tell you now, it did not go so well, but as you can see, we did get it attached, so that's all that really counts. That's all that really counts to the end, is the fact that we still got it attached. But yeah, today's objective is the fact that we're going to be looking to be landing on Eve. Now, the objective is always to be seeing if I can get back home, but we'll see where the ball lands and where maybe if we can even get back home. I was initially starting off and thinking that maybe we should try to use a type of medium-sized lander can, something a little bit bigger, a little bit more oomph, you know, a little bit more tolerance to crashes, and because as I know, or as some of you may know or may not know, but I'll go over it just in case some of you who do not know, but I'll let you know by letting you know about what I know, and that being is that Eve is about 1.7 times the 1.7 times the gravity of Kerbin. So it's about 70% stronger, but you know, almost close to 2 times near the surface. And it also has a atmospheric height of, I believe, about 90,000 meters. So Kerbin right now, you have the vacuum of space sitting at about 70,000. But over on Eve, the purple planet, which is very on theme for our little rocket here being purple, a little purple and green kind of going through the atmosphere as well. But Eve actually has an atmosphere all the way up to 90,000 meters. So we can actually start to use parachutes and kind of aero brake our way into the planet and try to land on top of the surface, and that's going to be our main objective today. I kind of was starting off with that medium lander can, but decided we should really go back to just a smaller type of, you know, vessel. And I realized that they have those radial decouplers, like, not radial decouplers, but they have aerodynamic decouplers, which I really need to maybe start taking a closer look at some of these parts that they have available. Either that or they definitely did not add them already. I believe they were there at the start. I just completely forgot about them because I remember seeing someone else look at those aerodynamic decouplers, but they do kind of extend you out a little bit away from the rocket. So I'm not exactly sure how necessarily good they are when you can, I feel like more aerodynamically be better just staying close to the rocket and having a large nose cone like we have now, but whatever works. Yeah, today we're kind of starting off with a smaller section. I've kind of come to the realization I need to test these sections in, like, as I built them. As you saw a little bit earlier, I built that first section. Like, okay, so what is the thrust to weight ratio that I'm looking at? Of course, we have our stats that can really give us the type of information that we're looking for, but you always just try to get a better visualization of seeing how, you know, your speed decreases, you know, your meters per second, how it actually holds together. I don't really trust any of the numbers that the game really gives us. I more trust how I feel how the rocket behaves, right? So that's kind of the primary. The only real numbers I trust is their thrust values. You know, but sometimes it looks like it's going to have a lot of thrust, but then you actually go to test it and you leave the pad going like 2 meters per second, right? So taking a look at this, I was really pleased by the fact that even with these 2 extra fuel tanks attached to the side, that I was able to really get a lot of speed out of this, get a lot of maneuverability with a couple of the SAS modules and keeping the stability going around. I have 1 extra parachute on top to kind of really hold off on, kind of help off, and maybe if I have the ability to get back to Kerbin, that 1 last parachute on the capsule is going to be enough to kind of get us home and then also use it to land. If we can get even below, a little bit below 70,000 meters in Kerbin, then you've essentially made it home. As long as you can hit the atmosphere of a planet, you have landed on it, because even if it takes 100 times of going around a planet, every time you hit that atmosphere, it lowers you. So yeah, I want to use those parachutes if we have the chance of getting back. Didn't quite have the best testing capabilities. I did not activate that in time. I was messing around with the controls. It wasn't quite activating for some reason, but continuing along with building the rocket is going real well. But DGDs, I've got to tell you a little bit of a story. Boy, it has been crazy. So unfortunately, I did just get back from a funeral. You know, hearts out to my grandpa, who is no longer with us. Although that is not the primary purpose of the story. The story being is that on our way home of about a 3-hour drive or so, on our way home, we went through a massive storm system. And, you know, it didn't seem anything particularly different from any other storm, but just besides that it was just very stormy, you know, very red on the radar and whatnot. And, but we had a couple of tornadoes that spawned, and oh boy, DGDs. I tell you what, we had to stop on the side of the road. You know, we stopped on the side of the road to kind of we couldn't see the road. The rain was whipping around so fast. It was going straight up sideways and almost upward in some instances. It It was crazy. It was still the middle of the day in a sense, like not necessarily middle of the day. It was kind of getting later sunset, but you know, during that time the sun was still out, but it was like pitch black out. But as the rain kind of subsided and we're like, all right, we think it's safe, let's start heading out. You know, everything's fine. We got some hail, everything's whipping around. The car like shook a whole bunch, but it's fine. Maybe we're protected. We're like, okay, so we passed it. We go to start driving out of the place, you know, like, okay, thinking we're safe. And as the lightning flashes right across from about like 600, like 700 yards away in the middle of a farm field, I see after the lightning of a flash, just this tornado just in the middle of the field. I'm like, oh my God, that just barely missed us. And also, we need to go now. You know, it wasn't something huge. It wasn't like an F5 destruction tornado. It was something probably like, it wasn't very tall, honestly. Not even like it was like an F1. It looked like something I was trying to form, but kind of failed to. It wasn't a huge funnel cloud, but I just remember seeing the lightning flash, and it wasn't just seeing it once. Like, I kept seeing the lightning flash, and every time it flashed, I just saw this giant, like, white cloud in the middle of the field. I'm like, oh, well, that's probably not supposed to be there. But yeah, DigiDs, it has been crazy. We, you know, luckily, as you can see, I've managed to make it back, you know, perfectly safe and sound, you know, all good and all, but, it has been crazy, you know, getting back from a funeral, then almost dying looking at a tornado, and then I got home, sat down, I was just like, you know what? I should probably record a video. You know, it's like, all right, business as usual. Because last night after all that, I guess I just kind of felt like getting back to business. Like, all right, well, after all that just happened, let's get back to the grind, and I made another Bad North video, which should be coming out sometime. I was gonna say sometime tomorrow, but time is a little irrelevant when it comes to YouTube. You never really know when some of these episodes are gonna be coming out. Sometimes I get other ideas while I'm recording, then I release other stuff along the way. Particularly as well, when I do live stream, I typically don't release a video for that day, which recently we have been live streaming a bit more lately. I probably need to plan these a bit more ahead of time to get some of you DigiDs a notification, because typically we don't see too many viewers while we're live streaming, but overall, like, it still seems like maybe like 20 people will stop by, but it's all throughout the course of like the 2 to 3 hours that I'm streaming. So, you know, like 1 or 2 people show up, and then, you know, they disappear, and then 1 or 2 people show up, etc, etc. But yeah, so we do live stream every once in a while. Recently I did Kerbal Space Program, where we did that field farm, but most recently I did Slime Rancher 2. That's right, some of the original videos that I kind of started doing daily on this channel was Slime Rancher originally. And you know, it was very early access. It had just come out. It didn't have a whole lot of you know, extra bits and bods to it. It didn't have a lot of the content. It was early access, right? It was bare bones. And so I didn't really necessarily continue that series because I got done with it very fast. So I'm gonna kind of just continue that along with only maybe in a live stream, because it's a very casual game to play too. It's hard to make content out of it, you know? I mean, obviously you can, but it just seems so chill and relaxed to play that type of game, like a ranching, farming game, that I may as well just, you know, use that for live streams. So yeah, you know, keep an eye out for any time we do more Kerbal live streams and any Slime Rancher live streams, and you know, and the only way you'll be able to get notified about that is if, that's right, DigiDs, if you go ahead and hit that subscription button, hit the bell for you to get the notifications, smash the like button, do all those trifecta of things, you know, really help the video get a little bit of engagement. It does help out the channel, it does help out the algorithm, and I'd really appreciate just, you know, giving a whole bunch of likes and comments and anything you feel like throwing down, and be really appreciative. But, you know, back to the rocket, we're still doing very well here in the background. I seem to do pretty well at building starting stages and middle stages, but I always seem to struggle building the final stage, right? Which is technically the very first stage, like the big stage. Now, it's pretty easy in general, right? Just throw a whole bunch of fuel tanks together and throw on some solid rocket boosters on the side and you're good to go. But it always seems to, when you go from small, medium to large, it still has so much wobble in some of these rockets. And I know I was talking about I was either the last video or the video prior, I was talking about how they had an interview with some of the developers, you know, of KSP. And when they were questioned about the wobble of rockets, they said that, of course, skinny ones are gonna wobble, thick ones are not gonna wobble, right? Now, even in cases like this, though, it doesn't wobble a whole lot. As we'll see here, we're gonna launch off soon. But even going from like large to medium to small, which is kind of what most rockets do, it still wobbles a lot, right? I still feel like they need to fix a lot of the structural integrity issues. We will be getting the second update still pretty soon, I believe in a week or two, which is going to be pretty exciting. They have a lot of different good changes coming, performance changes, frame rate issue changes, more structural changes, and fuel transfer changes, and switching vessels, and other updates. It's going to be a whole bunch, so I'm going to be looking forward to that. But even as now, we still managed to kind of do what our missions are intended to do. You know, right now we are on our way, like I've mentioned, on our way to Eve. This is still a decently sized rocket, and you know, as long as we can still get these rockets out, anything bigger than this starts to get pretty laggy. You know, kind of a lot of frame issues, a lot of bogging down. Even today, my computer is, whew, it is a space heater. I kid you not, DigiDs. For some reason today, I started up Kerbal Space Program, and I just heard the fans just whirring. They just sped up to full RPM, and it's liquid cooled at the same time, so the fans are still kicking on, trying to get the extra airflow through there. Yeah, Kerbal really loves to draw the resources away from computers, so seeing that they're really working on the frame and optimization of the system is honestly good to see. But we have made it into orbit, DigiDs. This is a pretty good initial start. Taking a look kind of exactly like we want to extend our orbit going backwards against our orbit, because right now where we want Eve is technically behind Kerbin. Although if we wanted to time warp and wait for it to get behind us, it's going to take forever. I honestly couldn't really be bothered, because where we are right now is kind of where Eve would need to be if our positions were swapped. So I wasn't really going to wait for that. I kind of did it a time warp and I'm like, this is taking way too long. So what I decided to do is I just got to the backside of Kerbin, and extending out the orbit from the backside of Kerbin is technically going retrograde, right? So as our orbit extends, when we leave the sphere of influence of Kerbin going this direction, we are going retrograde relative to where the direction of Kerbin is going. Because you have to remember that we are not moving through space, or Kerbin in itself, or you know, Earth in itself is also moving through space. So when we leave the sphere of influence of Earth, it's not that we are suddenly going 0 miles per hour, 0 meters per second. No, you just reduced your own speed. In a sense, you've almost fallen off the planet. When you are going retrograde away from the planet like this, it's almost in a sense that you're not even speeding away from it. It's almost in a sense that you just fell off of it, right? Because it's going away from you. It's speeding away from you in the opposite direction. So you're just boosting the opposite direction. Now, taking a look here, we only had like a 2-degree inclination change, which was not bad. Very little bit of fuel wasted. Got pretty well. It was kind of hard setting up the rendezvous point for Eve. It wasn't quite lining up because we weren't in the position that we necessarily wanted to. We could see how the 1A, 1B, 2A, 2B were very far apart. In hindsight, I probably should have just waited a little bit longer, just let them line up on their own, instead of wasting the retrograde fuel trying to force an interaction, rather than just waiting for it. And as you can see, kind of from here, getting up to the apoapsis, I'm like, it's close enough. We can start to get that 2A, 2B interaction, and right there, immediately, not even going to check where we're going to land at Eve. I'm pretty sure we're not going to hit it. Yep, we're not going to hit it. that is the important part, is that we're not going to hit it. So we got all the way up to our periapsis with, in a sense, our periapsis in this instance is also our apoapsis. This is, technically speaking, the lowest point of our orbit with Eve. I guess you couldn't necessarily say it's our highest point, because at the moment our highest point is outside of the sphere of influence of Eve. It'd be out that blue circle towards that blue line. So this is our periapsis at the moment, our lowest point, and we're just gonna go straight retrograde. Burn the rest of all of our fuel right here, just going straight retrograde, trying to fall into the Eve. Now, in this particular moment, we only really need to get to 90,000 meters. Like I was saying earlier in the episode, all we need to do is get to 90,000 meters, and we have hit enough of the atmosphere to start slowing us down. And the atmosphere in Eve, taking a look here, I even wrote it off to the side. Let's see. The atmosphere's influence, density, surface gravity. I wrote this down, and I cannot find it. Where is the atmosphere? It is the equivalent of 6 atmospheres on Eve. DigiDs, I've tried my best. I write down these notes, and I still stutter along with my own notes, trying to look at my own notes, you know? It's amazing. I write down my own notes in my own words to try to make it easier for my own self to recall information, and then I still somehow manage to not understand my own notes. Now, I could have swore I had a couple of fuel lines that put these side tanks straight into the main tank, so I'm not necessarily sure why it kept taking all the fuel out of all 3 at the same time. I really hoped in the future they add kind of a fuel priority system. They really added it to the KSP 1. It was a fuel priority where you could have it would basically just tell you which tanks it would draw from first. If these tanks on the right had a field priority of 1, but the one in the center was 0, it would draw from the ones that had a higher field priority, right? So it would draw from those first and then go to the center, which was very helpful for side tank situations like this. It would draw from the side tanks, and then once those are empty, you can decouple them, get rid of that mass, and have the rest of the field you have in your central core of that little field tank to really just kind of, now that you have like half the mass amount, it really gives you a lot more TWR, you know, thrust to weight ratio, and delta V in general just being lighter. Coming around, taking a look at Eve, it is absolutely a stunning and beautiful planet. Our purple little starship mixed in with the purpleness of the planet, it is beautiful, it's stunning, and I honestly get at a loss for words when I first took a look at this. They have done such a good job at really the resolution, like the way that these planets look and feel. Each of them have their own personal soundtracks. Each of them have their own personal, like, kind of touch to each. Like, before in KSP 1, you know, the planets did well. They still had their characteristics. They still had their atmosphere. They still had their high gravity. These are essentially the same ones as KSP 1. It's just now they are revamped, right? It's a lot prettier. You can see the beautiful terrain coming in. It's got more detail. You can see the beautiful purple oceans, the purple atmosphere, even like the light coming through. You can see the different layers of the atmosphere. You see a pinkish red hue on the bottom, and then a darker, deeper purple to a lighter purple as it goes up through the different layers of it. And it's honestly just astounding. Coming into this system, I didn't realize initially coming into this planet how high the gravity really is. Right? So I understood that it probably had a very thick atmosphere, even just looking at it on the map. You can tell it has a very strong atmosphere in a sense. It just looks very thick and viscous and is shrouded in clouds, so I figured it had an atmosphere. But I kind of underestimated. I did not look up beforehand the gravity. I didn't understand that the gravity is going to be 1.7 times. That it was going to be a bit difficult to kind of slow down on these planets. Right, so we're doing pretty well. We're kind of dropping in as we watch here. We're going to activate my parachutes at the last moment. Try to kind of slow down and crab the atmosphere just enough. Although, for some reason, they didn't... they did not detach quite properly and ended up detaching both my decouplers. Lost all my fuel, and it is SOL. Luckily, you need lots of quick saves and reverts in this. It is ridiculous in how often you really need to depend on your saving. Still beautiful the second time coming in. Might be even more beautiful the 100th time coming in. But still a beautiful hue. You know, it really makes you appreciate all that there is out there in space, you know, because this is just our own solar system, right? I mean, this is Kerbin, right? Of course. But even in our own solar system, we have planets like Saturn and Jupiter, which are just giant gas planets. You know, we have stuff like Venus, which are... It's kind of almost like Eve. Venus is very shrouded in clouds. Although it's a lot hotter, it's a lot drier, it's not, you know, purple. I'm not too certain I've seen too many purple planets in our time. I've seen lots of blues and grays and a little bit of oranges, but not too many purples. Neglect that you're probably gonna have to find a gas giant for something like that. Although, I mean, hey, DigiDs too, anyone that might know an actual purple planet that's out there, you know, who am I kidding? There probably is. There's entire planets made out of nothing but diamonds, and planets made out of nothing but coal and stuff like that. The universe is honestly just amazing how the plethora of physics can just, the ways that it creates all these types of monstrosities of creation is astounding. I'm kind of stuttering over my words a little bit because I'm just at a loss for words of how beautiful some of this stuff really is. You know, it makes you really appreciate the fact that we can even live here on Earth in such a perfect type of atmosphere. But trying to slow down, yeah, it does not slow down very fast at all. Back in Kerbin, it's worked fantastic, but here on Eve, oh boy, I think I fired my engines at about 300 meters left, and I only lost about 2 meters per second in speed. You know, again, the purple does wonders for the ocean. Watching our parts bounce around keeps you pretty steady. It's very beautiful. It almost looks... The water almost looks very heavy in itself too, right? I think they did a good job. It's still kind of the same physics, but maybe something about the purple or just the way that the environment looks is that it looks very heavy. Now, I was lining myself up to maybe get over to the land so I could take a look at the land. I fire my rocket and nothing. DigiD's nothing. Can't even get out of the water. Just straight stuck to the ground. That 1.7G is a killer. Even though I had a lot of thrust that I tested back on Kerbin, I it was not accounted for, that it still was not going to be enough here on Eve. So even though I did land on Eve, which, you know, hey, congratulations to us DigiDs, we did land on Eve, fantastic, but we did not plant a flag. I wanted to kind of go land on the land, so we can plant a flag into the land, you know, kind of put a flag down in the dirt and get our little signature on the planet. Although, man, I was surprised by, I kept firing my rocket here off to the side. I'm like, there's no way I'm getting home after realizing I can't get off the ground. So I kept trying to get over to the shore and land on the land, but the atmosphere is so thick, I kept losing all my atmosphere, or all my velocity in, like, in trajectory, just kept landing right back into the ocean. So I kept restarting, trying again. But DigiDs, earlier I mentioned, Eve and all these planets have their own personal soundtracks. So if you actually take a listen, and I'll stop talking for a moment, and I believe the music should come through here in the background, but this should be the music that we have for Eve that is playing at the moment. So I'll stay quiet here, and let's see if it actually comes through. Honestly, it is beautiful. I'm surprised that they got a personal orchestra to create music and sheet music for all these different planets. It really sparks life into these, you know, it makes you feel excited to kind of land on these. I haven't listened to any of these soundtracks before, and I completely forgot about it until about my first, I think it was the first or second landing there. I turned on the music because I forgot about it. Oh yeah, that's right, there should be some individual music, you know. So I finally managed to kind of get a good landing here on the ground, although not quite. I think I'm right on the shore. Oh, not quite, nope. I can actually fly this rocket a little bit because I added on those little stabilizers at the top and on the side. You can glide this thing. I tried gliding it a little bit. Of course, it wasn't built to be a plane, so it doesn't work too well as a plane or a glider, but you can glide this thing pretty well, surprisingly. So I just started wasting as much fuel as I could, just try to get over to the land. I was so tired of, like, it being the 7th or 8th attempt of just trying to just land on land. I'm like, this should not be this difficult. So I transferred all my fuel I could to the center core, keep the balance a little bit the best I can. Not necessarily still the best, but go ahead and keep those side ones on because they have my actual parachutes. They have all those 8 drogue chutes that are going to be able to slow me down and let us into the atmosphere. And there we go, they start to activate. And to tell you what, DigiDs, it has been a real treat, again, making all these Kerbal Space Program videos. Feel free to subscribe. You know, if you love seeing this type of content, my type of commentary, and these types of videos in general, then feel free to come back in the future, hit that subscription, hit the bell notification. You know, you will be notified more videos coming out in the future. And yeah, you know, I've been trying to realize that I need to ask people to subscribe more in these videos. Maybe it's a little bit, I get kind of tired of hearing YouTubers say that all the time. Subscribe, subscribe, subscribe. But then I'm looking at my own videos as of lately, you know, like I just got like 3 or 4 different videos that all got about 3,000 views on them individually. And I gained about 13 subscribers. So I think I need to remind y'all to subscribe a little bit more to, you know, if you are returning, if you are a new viewer, then feel free to subscribe. And yeah, I will have more content like this. We do a lot of Kerbal Program content. We've been doing a lot of Bad North lately. I've been streaming Slime Rancher, and it's been fun. I've been playing so many games lately. I want to get a couple games recorded of me playing Rocket League with my buddies. I don't know if that's content that people really care about, but honestly, I'm kind of in the whole mindset these days that it doesn't matter what I put out. As long as I'm putting out content and it's not absolute, well, dog shit. As long as I'm putting out content in general, honestly, I'm just going to appreciate anyone who feels like they want to view it, anyone who wants to come along this ride with me and just view some of these blathering, just like garrulous type of ranting that I have on for all these videos, you know. But that's what we did at DigiDs. We have landed on Eve. We have had a real adventure trying to get over here, a rocket that worked pretty well overall. And, you know, I still don't really know how to do these outros, so I suppose I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you, and bye-bye.